What's up, everybody?
I need an air guitar for that intro.
I'm telling you. What are
Jeez.
we gonna do when we're on break, Farron? Who will provide the dance party? Oh, there goes my light. See, lights out.
Lights
Time
out
to go.
already.
Time to go. All right, we gotta fix that here. Here we go. Happy Tuesday,
Boom.
everybody.
This is what happens when it's live.
Lights out. At least the internet didn't shut off, so that's a good thing. It's Tuesday, everybody, and I don't know if you caught the description of our live stream this evening, but this is going to be our final episode of 2023. We are making he's excusing himself already here, boys and girls. Um, this is going to be our final episode of 2023, but I don't want you to worry,
Nope.
fret, be
Nope.
nervous, none
Nope.
of that,
Nope.
because will we be back next year, Farron?
When?
Will we?
Oh, will we? Of course we will.
We're going to be back for our season 2, you guys.
Boom.
In 2024.
Oh my gosh. For real?
I was having a moment the other day thinking about I was looking at some pictures from like back in school days, and I don't think, even like in my mind, I don't think I processed what today would be like. I don't think I processed being around in 2024. As weird as that sounds, I'm only 42, but Jesus, it's like I don't know. It's a strange thing to think about, and time goes by so fast. I feel like how do you feel about this season together on this show? Do you feel like it went really fast, or how did you process this time together?
When we initially, even you brought it up, like we talked about it.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, that sounds cool. A place where I could fully self-express myself and, say what's on my mind and, all the things that I've learned about myself. I could share it openly and freely and tell the truth. And then we did episode 1.
Yeah.
And it was like, what are you doing, bro? Are you really going to put your life out there like that?
Yeah.
But if it's something that I teach at church, like you have to be able to willing to tell the truth to yourself. Like that's number one. If you're not willing to tell the truth to yourself, then how can you tell it to somebody else, right? So from that episode, we went all the way from trust, all the communications, and like those are my real life. Like I had to learn about that. So, like I didn't have none of that, barely any of that information about accountability, about my, just communication and like all of that. So to self-examine myself every episode and to be willing to tell the truth, like I cried last episode, like that was genuine, like that was me reflecting like all we've been through together. I'm my race, you're your race, like I'm like like all of that we probably deal with that we don't pay attention to, but but in all of that, I mean, this is what it's about. And if I can do my part in that, I'm gonna do it.
It's been really eye-opening for me. I mean, I'll say this kind of two-part. I didn't expect it to be any less, because I know you, I know your heart. I'm not sure I would have picked this kind of vulnerable space to do this with somebody else. I'm going to be honest with you. But at the same time, it's like we come, like you said, we're two very different people. We come from very different places. We have very different backgrounds. And if we are capable of coming together and talking about these really tough things and invite other people to come on. We had some incredible guests throughout this season as well. We had Caldwell, we had Michelle, we had Lori, we had Scott Mason. I mean, just some really thought-provoking individuals on this screen with us. And so if we are all from all these very different places, have the ability to come together and talk about these very tough things without a brawl, without without feeling, I never once felt forced to abandon my beliefs.
Yeah.
I never once felt threatened when somebody's beliefs or
Are you
thoughts.
not threatened by the black man?
What? I never once felt this was such a safe space, is my point. And I'm so thankful for that. We, as Farron mentioned, we did talk about, we had 4 main topics this season that we discussed: communication being the first one, integrities, trust, and then boundaries is what we were finishing off the season with this evening. And within those 4 topics, we touched on responsibility, listening, accountability, relationships, language, diversity, culture. And I just want to encourage everybody, if you have missed some of this season, this has really been truly 16 gold mine episodes. All right. I mean, just if you ever struggle to like hear an opinion that's different than yours, and your reaction or whatever, just go back and just listen to other people's perspectives, and I promise you there will be something that you come out of this with, that will maybe open your mind a little bit to something other than the bubble that we're in a lot of the time.
Can I tell you, I I had discovered my being responsible as a way to prove to myself, right? Like a silent, like it came from the life of an 8-year-old, right? And when I had the latchkey kid and I had the key, and I told myself that I couldn't trust my mom and that I had to be responsible because I had that key, right? And so that was my mind as an 8-year-old. And so I literally could look back in my life and see where being responsible was like a way to prove to myself, but also being responsible, I controlled and dominated relationships with being responsible. And I most recently discovered that on my way to church last Sunday, I was my turn to speak. And I started feeling kind of sick Thursday night, Friday, Saturday. I woke up Sunday and my chest.
That's what you try to pull every Monday.
Yeah. I woke up, right, and my chest was burning, right? And so I immediately, I know I have to deliver the message at church. So I woke up and I was like, oh man, like, what do I do? And I'm like, so I called my pastor and I said, hey, pastor, I think I need to go to the VA or to urgent care because I'm feeling sick. And he was like, well, I can't tell you what to do, son. He's like, let's pray. Right. And so we pray. And then he's like, okay, let the Spirit lead you. You got time to figure it out. He's like, can you deliver the message from the VA? And I was like, no. He was like, well, you got time to figure it out. So he hung up the phone and I sat on my bed and I says, this is what it looks like, Farron. Being responsible is a very key part of us, right? It was, so I looked at it like, I'm feeling sick. I don't want to go to church because I don't want to get nobody sick.
Yeah.
Right. That's ultimately the first thing that came up for me in being responsible. Like, I'm going to be responsible, but then I have this message to deliver.
Right.
And my message was about because as an opinion.
Yeah.
And I sat there and my mind just started pulling that apart. And I saw how I used being responsible to control situations and even get out of situations. So I wasn't going to go to church because I was feeling sick.
Yeah.
But my spirituality said then, but in August, you just gave your word to God that you trust God completely.
Right.
Remember, I had trust
issues.
So
which is it?
So which is it?
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drink some tea, take some medicine, get dressed, and I drove to church. And I shared this story as part of my testimony for that message of I was about to use because to keep me from coming to church.
Right.
When I say that I have faith and trust in God, but yet I let my subconscious mind being responsible almost hold me back. And then I would have felt bad that day. I mean, I would have been diminished that day, but I didn't go to church because I'm being and so to sit there and to in my head and see how it plays out, that sure enough, me being responsible is also a way that I can control and dominate situations. And I was so free from that. Like, there it is right there. Because.
Yeah. And because ties so much into our topic this evening that we are closing out our series on boundaries about, which is pushing limits, overcoming self-imposed boundaries. I want to say hi really quickly. Miss Brittany got her VIP front row. VIP. And definitely amazing shows every episode, she said. So thank you so much for being here, Miss Brittany. I appreciate you. In the midst of all this, Miss Brittany started a new job and she's so tired, and she comes on here still after her tired, when she's tired at the end of her day. So I just want to say how much I appreciate Miss Brittany has had my back with every show that I've done. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you being here, and not just being here, but like she has provided us with so much great feedback behind the scenes of like how much an episode has affected her, or like she'll be crying. So she'll be like, text me afterwards. I'm sweating. This was a good one. So thank you so much, Brittany. We appreciate you and everybody who watches, and we'd love for you to chime in if you're watching live or on the replay. Let us know where you're joining from and what has been your favorite part of this season that we've done on Beyond 2D here. Wow. So pushing limits, overcoming self-imposed boundaries. I think there's a lot of different ways we can go with this conversation tonight, but I think a good thing to maybe start with is, what does it look like to you? What do self-imposed boundaries look like to you? When you hear that, self-imposed boundaries, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, that was a perfect example of me discovering being responsible was a boundary, and then I get to look at what does being responsible cost me? Right? Yeah. What does that cost me? And ultimately it cost me my freedom. It cost me my self-expression. It cost me the things that we talk about on the show, being responsible, because I can control so much. And no one would ever question if my pastor, if he wasn't a pastor and he was a friend, he would have said, yeah, stay home. Stay home. But he didn't speak to my mind. He spoke to the spirit man. He says, no, let's pray. Because I can't
tell you what to do, son.
And I was like, okay, cool. Because I was thinking he was going to be like, okay, yeah, don't worry about it. You know, yes, you're not, you know, I don't want, and in my mind, it made sense. There's elderly people there, you know, it's all that. So I'm being responsible. That's part of being responsible for me. But I could see where that held me, where it holds me back in life, for sure, in many areas.
But this story that you're telling, though, is a great example of how sometimes other people's things play heavily on the boundaries that we place on ourselves. Because so I'm in the middle of writing this book right now. I'm gonna say in the middle. I've been in the middle of writing this book since 2019.
Oh, that's not that far. That's not that long ago.
Listen, I am dragging my feet. And finally, speaking of Miss Brittany, I got a certain fire lit under my behind this week. My little creative fire, and Farron's gotten a benefit from that creativity too. So I'm writing these short stories about growing up with my grandparents. And the point of the book is about how they taught me things without actually teaching me. Like they didn't say the words, they just were the example or did certain things. And there's these memories that I have now that have shaped the person that I am today, or helped to shape that person. And so I think what your pastor did in your situation was such a powerful thing to do, in saying, I can't tell you what to do. And it's one of my favorite things that I love to do with my kids now too, because even though we think sometimes from a leadership's perspective that we're supposed to guide, and by guide that means we have to tell what to do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when we do that, we create the space for a person to make boundaries for themselves.
Yeah.
When we tell them, you should do this, you should do that, a person is more likely to go, oh, okay, maybe I should then do XYZ, instead of like him going, I can't tell you what to do, Farron. And so that then poses the question to you, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Instead of, and you then have, now it's passed to you. Will I create a boundary?
Yeah.
Will I use a because, or will I allow myself to be free?
Yeah. And because I remember that story, or what happened at church in August, when I questioned God and he showed me that I could trust him completely, that's what my mind went to.
Yeah.
My mind went to, oh, but remember what Pastor Kevin said and what you committed to? Oh, yeah. And I said, well, then here it is. Here it is, me trusting God completely, right? And I'm going to go to, and so I wear a mask. And I wore my mask.
Yeah.
But and my pastor said, well, you can take the mask off when you speak. But in my head at home, I was done. And so the pastor's wife, when I pulled up and walked through the door, she says, when I saw your truck pull up, I started laughing. I said, why? She said, because you put your foot on the devil's head this morning, didn't you? I said, yes, I sure did. And we laughed, but that was the difference.
Yeah.
That was the difference. And so I saw, now I'm looking in my heart, in my mind, where being responsible is holding me back. And I could see different areas like, oh man, there it is, and there it is, and there it is. And it's like, I can let that go. And I get to just be Farron and be free and still be responsible. But then now I have a conversation in my head from a different perspective,
right,
of controlling the situation, or, about my faith.
Yeah. I mean, I can think back to many times that I have created a boundary for myself based on, a lot of times we create those boundaries based on our history. We've talked several times this entire series about how we grew up and the stories that were told and things and the experiences that we have shaping kind of the choices that we make going forward. And one of the places that I think is still like really where boundaries come into play for me. As soon as I hear self-imposed boundaries, I immediately think about my health. 100%. That's where my mind goes, because when part of what I've been sort of unraveling for myself is I've had some pretty significant chronic health concerns since I was very, very young. Earliest I think I can personally remember was like second grade. So I've been dealing with crap with my body for a really long time. And because of experiences that I've had, I started unknowingly creating boundaries for myself of can'ts and shouldn'ts when it comes to moving my body, when it comes to how I eat, when it comes to how I take care of myself. And those are things that I have had to slowly start tearing down those boundaries in a realization that I cannot make movement forward if I don't try again. Because one of the biggest things I think I've realized in my life is the biggest reason to try again is you are never in the same exact circumstance or mindset twice, like ever, because one moment from now you will have learned from the moment before. You and so we say, oh well we can't do that. So I had an injury in high school, which ultimately led me to have back surgery when I was 16 years old. And so I had a spinal fusion at 16. And from that point forward, I can't, fitness isn't for me.
Yeah.
Can't do the fitness because I've seen what happens when you do the fitness, they be fitness right in the ambulance. That's what happens. Okay. And so I've had to like unravel those stories that I've told myself and the boundaries and the walls that I have built around myself to protect myself. It was for a good cause.
Yeah.
But ultimately, sometimes the best intentions will hold us back from the next thing and have ultimately made my life more difficult, mobility wise, feeling good
Yeah.
about myself wise,
Mm-hmm.
because I told myself I can't now.
Oh yeah. I so you have your version of that at a younger age. I have mine at 36.
Mm.
Right? And so here I am now, like I want to exercise, I want to go to the gym, but I was
You better
viewing
be
the
careful.
I better be careful,
Mm.
and the way that I put that boundary up like a wall
Yeah.
was I the way I talked about the boundary. That's why I said language is so important, because they're all created in language.
Mm.
And that boundary that I set up about the gym, it was like if I go to the gym, it's gonna kill me.
Yep.
Like that.
Absolutely.
Like if I
Yep.
go there, I'm gonna die. And so to understand how powerful our words are, and again, my conversation is you can't see boundaries in physical
Mm.
nature, they're all in language. We have to be able to pay attention to how we talk and how we describe those boundaries. Like you
Mm.
said, we're gonna get into the second half of this show about the good boundaries to have,
Yeah.
but these self-imposed,
Yeah.
like, and it's still like I get it today, but I still lack a lack of confidence to just go to the gym.
Right.
Like I'm
Right.
not free. I'm still not free to go,
Yeah.
but I've taken the precautions of drinking more water and doing these things. But I had it in my mind like the gym was coming at me with a knife
Mm.
and was going to kill me. And that boundary that I created, that fear-based boundary, I would imagine, um,
Right.
it was like it was real.
Right.
Like I could show you outside, the gym is gonna kill me if I go over there. Like
Right.
that real to me.
I think part of the conversation about pushing boundaries really for me a lot of times starts with what you're talking about, which is setting myself up for success. Even if I get into whatever it is I'm pushing, trying to push myself past, and it doesn't work out, I know that I've done everything, that whether it's drinking more water,
Right.
stretching first, what I've prepared myself the best way possible. And sometimes I feel like that's how I get myself started. That's how I get myself on the vibe of pushing a limit, is
Yeah.
when I do everything, I exhaust every possibility to set myself up for success. Now, sometimes if we talk about how sometimes, the because and everything
Yeah.
else, I'd be like, well, I spent I spent all that energy getting spit up, and I'm just tired now. So we do have to be, I feel like, careful as far as setting ourselves up, in that we're not wasting all of our energy on that and then using
And
as it
then
as an excuse
exactly.
of why we didn't
I
move
did that the
forward.
other day. I did that the other day going to the
Yeah.
gym. I was like, nah,
I just stretched for 15 minutes. I'm
I
good.
I I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah. Nah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cold. It's I don't even know how to tell you what it's.
Yeah.
But if you're listening and you see yourself in the version of that,
Mm.
this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and there's ways that we can push ourselves past those boundaries. And I believe, like I said, it's having that confidence and that courage when it's uncomfortable too.
Mm.
Like we have confidence and courage when I know that I can accomplish something. You
Right.
have it then. But what about when it's uncomfortable? What
Mm.
about when you are faced with your own boundary, right?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
then what does that look like? Are you peeping over your own boundary like, yeah, nah?
Yeah.
Or is that boundary protecting you from somebody, like I said, somebody else? Like what is that boundary, up there for?
Mm.
And like I said, I learned from you that boundaries can be definitely a positive way to stand from, but then some of those boundaries we have can also limit us.
Right.
And these are those self-imposed ones that we think we're protecting ourselves, but we're really holding ourselves back in that same.
What level of awareness do you have about when you are actually creating the boundaries yourself? I mean, I know we know consciously, right? We talk about on the show all the time how we are creating this stuff for ourselves, that we got to come back to us. But do you feel like you're super aware of when you go, I've done this, like I'm, or even I'm doing this right now, I've built this wall or this limit for myself?
Yeah, I caught myself when I retired, and then I got the disabled placard, you know,
Hmm.
and and it was like, oh, I'm disabled. I then now there's things I can't do anymore. I can't have my motorcycle. Like there's this view of myself that I started to look at, and I'm almost define myself as a disabled veteran and then behave as such.
Yep.
And then I saw this guy on his spider who was handicapped, who had a wheelchair, and I was like, hold on, like this dude has got no legs, and he's riding his motorcycle with a wheelchair attached. Oh no, I'm not disabled. Like I'm not gonna let that define me. And the moment that I caught that, I was able to, kind of push that. I'm disabled, but I don't have to live from being disabled. I don't have to start to cut off things that I can't do anymore in life because I'm disabled. And people, if I'm disabled, how are people gonna look at me? How are you disabled and you riding a motorcycle? Like, how are you disabled and you still playing basketball? How are you disabled and you still doing this? And I'm like, and my mind was like, these barriers were coming up, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So I could see them like come down, like no, and they want to go back up and come down, and I'm like, no, like no. And that's only because of that education that I had taken, that I had been able to recognize, and a lot. And I'm gonna tell you this: sometimes it's our own opinion of ourselves too.
Right.
Sometimes that boundary comes from an opinion about who I say that I am. And then I put that boundary up. I'm not good enough. And then there's that boundary.
Right. I absolutely know that where I still struggle when it comes to my self-imposed limitations is from that opinion that I have of myself, or a fear of an opinion that I will develop for myself.
Ooh, to develop. Ooh.
Like, because even as you're talking about like the disabled thing, so this is because I want to ask you something too about, because I think sometimes we put up self-imposed boundaries when it comes to asking for help as well. So I had a back when I received a certain diagnosis a while back. See, I won't even say it. I won't even say it because in my mind, like I'm like, if I say it, it is, and I'm not that, and so I refuse. Like I'm so stubborn about this. Okay, you are stubborn about boundaries. I'm so stubborn about this. So I had my doctor had given me the handicap thing for the car, and so listen, nobody loved that as much as my husband.
Don't the family like it though? Don't the family like it?
They love it. But like, I will be honest with you, I struggled with it from the get-go, not having it, the meaning of it. And there were times when I would be like, I would be like on an 8 out of 10 on the pain scale and be like, I could walk, I'll be okay. And since that time, it's expired. And I have not gone to get another one because I'm being super I created this boundary where I'm not going to ask for help because of some of those similar things that you were talking about what are what are people going to think if I can walk on a certain day?
Right.
Like, and look, nobody knows how much pain I'm in. I'm a real good actress. Okay.
Oh,
I
yeah.
promise you.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did. Some of y'all didn't know that I did Project Joy yesterday with a migraine, and I was that's okay. I'm amazing at what I do.
Yeah.
All right. But like I'm so afraid of like I'm gonna get it and people are gonna be like, look at her walking. Look at her walking up there. She don't need that. What's she like? 35? Yes, I am. Like I get these thoughts in my head of what people are gonna say, and so I create this. Now I've gotten to where I've made this boundary and asking for help because of all these stories that I've made up for myself. Because of who I am and who I'm afraid other people think I am.
Now imagine we do that at a very young age, and then we grow up as adults and we collect the evidence to prove to that I'm not. And this is why we do this show, because all these subjects that we've covered, it all goes back to that, what I just said. The stories that we create about trust and communication, and the evidence that's usually a negative evidence because it's feeding the upset or the disappointment, right? So it's like we collect the negative, subconsciously collect the negative evidence on stuff.
And it is possible for you to do that with health things. I want everybody to know that today, because that is what I have been for the last 15 years trying to unravel for myself. When I realized that I got attention as a child from certain people when I didn't feel well, you will continue to not feel well, and you will continue to manifest things in your body so that you can get that attention that you want. And eventually you realize that ain't the kind of attention that I want. Me and my body are real tired over here.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it is a lot harder to go back and unravel that. But the awareness, I feel like, is why I'm still here and I'm still kicking through everything that I've been through, is that awareness of just being like, I don't need attention for that.
Yeah.
That's not.
You're so, and for me, that's also part of being responsible. Like, I'm a responsible person, but then I wasn't committed to things.
Right.
And there are two different perspectives. And me being responsible and looking good and all that other stuff, pretending like I want to be engaged, but I wasn't committed. I wasn't committed. So then when the stuff hits the fan and it's like, where are you at? You're supposed to be doing this and doing this. Well, I showed up, but I don't want to do the work. I'm committed to this, but I'm not so to understand the difference of those, and to understand how I use that to prove to myself, look, I was so responsible. I picked one of the most responsible jobs in the Army.
Yeah.
The supply sergeant. I picked I was in charge of a paperclip and tanks. Accountable, responsible for all the equipment in the unit. Like, I proved that to myself, but I also showed up. It also showed up as controlling and dominating, and people not going to question Farron's responsibility. They're not going to question that. But I also can manipulate you with that too.
Right.
I can also control and dominate situations. And so it's like living, like you said, living in this pain 8. And there are days I pull up in my truck and I'm like, I'm not walking, or I'll pull up and there'll be a handicap here and an open space here. I'll just go to the open space. But on those, but I get out of my truck. I will get out of my truck sometimes, and I'm like, I wonder what they're thinking about. Yeah. I hope they see the retired Army plate on the truck. Yeah. Like, I hope they like. But it's like, how does that? We beat ourselves up too, though.
Right.
That's the part that not being free and self-expressed and just free to be is those some of those barriers that we put up about ourselves, limit ourselves in enjoying life.
Yeah.
And just being free. Freedom. Like we want that, but how can you be free when you have all these boundaries up about who you are and who you're not? And then we want, and then pretending, I want to say this before we go on break, pretending is exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting to pretend.
Absolutely.
To pretend. Like, no more.
And I think pretending and not allowing yourself to be who you are in the moment is one of the most detrimental boundaries that we can place on ourselves. I want to talk about breaking free from some of this. I want to flip it a little bit. Coming back from break, we're going to take a quick break and be right back after this. I would love to hear from you guys. If you're joining us, please let us know in the comments on the break that you're here. Let us know where you're joining from. I want to be able to say hi to you, okay? Because we're not going to be able to say hi again until we say Happy New Year, and then I'm going to be sad.
For a few months.
All right? I'll be right back after this.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh, man, that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn. Are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. You know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army, 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man.
There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org.
Welcome back to Beyond 2D. We are at the very end of our series on boundaries, or our little mini series on boundaries. And this is our official season 1 finale of Beyond 2D. We're going to see you guys in 2024 with some more rabbit holes to go down, I'm sure. But we've been talking about pushing limits, overcoming self-imposed boundaries this evening. And what I want to talk about on this side of the break is about what are some of the tools, mindset shifts, beliefs, things that we can do to break free from those self-imposed boundaries, or even stop ourselves from making them to begin with. I'll start off and say I'm not really sure that we can stop ourselves, because I believe a lot of times those beliefs, that history, that experience, sometimes we do it, sometimes even unknowingly. And I think for me, it's really been about an awareness that I was talking about before, that I'm doing it, and then choosing to break free from that. I don't think I'm not, I guess, enlightened enough to just not make any more boundaries at this point. But I do think I recognize a lot quicker what I do to myself and choose to then shift that in the direction and move forward. Do you have any immediate thoughts or opinions or tools, things that you do to kind of break free from things you put on yourself?
Yeah, when I started this healing journey, like I said, it's about 13 years ago coming up, and I had to find some new principles to live by. And I believe that that's what people have to find out, because we're being used by something. Right. If it's used by the stories of our past, or if it's used by people that we follow and we idolize, we're used by our own thoughts. Like you said, you can't stop the thoughts. The thoughts are going to happen. The best thing that we can learn how to do is to recognize the thought before we take that action, before we start to follow the thought and behave as the thought is telling us. But you can't stop your thoughts. Yeah. So with the education that I've taken, and me separating, my theology, I have a principle for that. I have a principle for my ideology of how my thoughts are, and I got a new principle for my philosophy, like my beliefs of what it is to be a human being and a person. So when I took those three principles and I put my life in those principles, I was able to discover, because I trust those principles, right? I trust them. And so find something that you trust. Right. Find new principles. Sometimes you have to go back and things that were influenced you as a teenager, as a child, that stuff may not work for you for who you are today. And at 40, that's what I was able to do. I was able to find some new principles, challenge my thoughts up against those principles, and see how I was behaving in those principles, like my behavior. Right. And it was like, I don't want to. You can act like that, or you can now act like this. And it was like, I have a choice. Like, I can choose my behavior. Yes, you can. You can walk around frustrated and upset, mad, or you can walk around with peace and calmness and kindness and gentleness and compassion. Like, we have control over those. Yeah. And a lot of people don't think you have that, because that mind says one thing in your head, and then you believe that's you, and then you act that out because that's how you've been acting out for years. And when I did that, it was like I don't want to live that life. Like, I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to I don't want to live in anxiety anymore. Like, I get what living in anxiety cost me. Right. Yeah. And so how do I learn so I had to get principles to learn how to manage my anxiety. Oh, that's called the future of uncertainty, because I think so far in the future that I can't control. So I got knowledge, I got understanding, I got revelation, because the revelation is when you get the knowledge and understanding, how does that apply to you? Not to them. How does that look in your life? And when you discover what that looks like in your behavior in that, now you got a choice. Now you can't act like you don't know what you're doing, because now you can see where it's coming from. Right. Some people, it's challenging, because it takes courage. It takes a way to be, to go back in your mind and tell the truth about how you've been thinking all your life. Right. Right. And those thoughts, they're not right or wrong thoughts, but they just could be corrupted. And right. If it's a corrupted thought, what is it costing you? What are the consequences of thinking like that? But the number one is, you've got to be willing. You have to be willing to look and do the work and be the work. Right. My saying is, we're human beings, not human doings. Yep. We focus on what we do in life, and we've been so hurt and disappointed and mad with the past and our parents and our friends. So I don't care about the experience anymore. Just do what you got to do. Yeah. When that experience is just as important as what you're doing, because you can do that frustrated, you could do it upset, or you could do it with peace and calm. And some people don't believe that they have power over that part. That you can control. That you have a say so. You have and to teach that and to share that, for me, that's been my freedom.
Yeah.
And then what's possible, I get to be self-expressed. I get freedom. I get peace of mind. I get understanding about myself. So now when those thoughts come up and those feelings come up, it's like, okay, right here in my chair, I could be like, nah, we're not gonna no. We're not gonna no. That's not how that. And plus, when you put those new principles in your heart and you study them and you practice them, guess what? Now your subconscious mind is gonna pull from the new stuff now because you get to try the new stuff. Oh, I know it. If I do this, I know what I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get mad at the end. So let me do this calmly and see what happens.
Right. I think so much of what you're saying, to come back to, yourself and your principles, I think is the ultimate goal. It's the ultimate thing that's gonna create that freedom for you in order to be able to break through. And I think that there's a lot of things that you can do, sort of, because I feel like sometimes it can take a while to come back to self. Like you said, I don't think I really started, checking myself like that until later on in my 30s, and when you were 40, etc. And so sometimes it can take a while to do that. And I feel like there's other tools and things that you can do to sort of to facilitate that process that can help you in that process. And one of those things I was actually talking about with a recent guest, Miu Fan, who was on a special edition of the Breakthrough Show last week. We were talking about authority, and we were talking about your circle of influence and surrounding yourself with people of authority and of a certain level of influence as you are setting and trying to achieve certain goals and things like that. And we were talking about how she wanted to make an event, and she set a goal. She was like, I'm going to have a celebrity guest speaker at this event. She just declared it. And I was talking about when I first started the Breakthrough Show and how I was like, there was a certain celebrity that I wanted on there. And I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And how there were always people in both of our situations who were like, now, who are you? They don't know who you are. They don't. And try to again, like I was talking about back in the beginning of the show, try to superimpose their beliefs and their boundaries onto our dreams and the things that we were trying to do. So I feel like, being really mindful of who you surround yourself with. Now, I am not in 0% telling you that you should always surround yourself with yes people. I think surrounding yourself with people that are able to check you and say, hey, Jessica, that's not what you said you were going to do. That, to be able to do that. But anybody who is like in your circle of influence, who the second you say you have a dream to do something is quick to give you a boundary that you should put up and not be able to achieve that thing, you really have to. And I'm not saying to dump the relationships, but we have to learn how to compartmentalize within relationships. I think that is so important, because one of my biggest learning lessons has been to not depend on people for everything. I have certain people in my life for certain reasons now. I don't go to Farron about certain things. I don't even go to my husband about certain things, because that's not his things. Yeah. He will glaze over. I will lose him. I will be offended then because he's glazed over.
Right.
And I just shouldn't have gone to him to begin with.
Exactly.
Exactly. So those are even sometimes when, for me, boundaries have been a helpful thing. For me, is within relationships, compartmentalizing within relationships. There are certain things I won't talk about with certain people. And not because I can't, but because I value my peace, because I want to feel validated in a conversation, which is a very human thing to want to feel. I want to feel like I'm being heard. Yes. I'm being listened to. And certain people, like I said, certain topics, my husband will be like, and it just is what it is. Everybody has those things that they just don't want to listen to.
What a powerful piece to that to have that boundary be a strength and a power is to tell that person, hey, this is the relationship, and don't be offended if you hear me talking about this to somebody else, especially like your husband.
Exactly.
Like, to have him understand, like, hey, you know what, I get it. You may not be interested, so I'm gonna be sharing particular subject with some. And so to me, that's when you set that boundary. That's and that's empowering you. Still telling the truth to that person.
Right. It's so important.
Don't set the boundary up on that person, and then they don't even know that there's a boundary there. Right. And then you just shun them off, or you treat them a certain way, and they have no idea. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, because you put up a boundary, I didn't even know. Like, tell me. So that's how you keep your power and your strength and your confidence. Because if you want to put that boundary up, communicate to that person.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned. Communicate that. Those and these are the consequences if you cross the boundary, right? And do you agree? And then and let them contribute to the boundary. Let them contribute, like, you know what? Because you might give me a boundary, and I might say, you know what? I'll just leave you alone because I can't even live up to that. Like, you put something up that I'm not even going to try to live up to that, right? And then that's where the negotiation and the communication starts to become a dance, and you can have conversations, and now that person knows, like, hey, don't cross this right here unless I ask you for that kind of input or whatever. So
I think even if
power.
Right. Even if whether we're talking about boundaries with ourselves or with other people, you don't I think it's really important. I gave the analogy back in the beginning of this series about a net being a boundary, and how like when we put a net in the ocean, it still allows, like, it may stop a big predator, but it still allows life to flow through, the plankton, the algae, the little fishies, whatever else. It's not a wall. And so I continue to think of boundaries in that way. And so when I talk about boundaries, it's not always a completely shut door for me, even in compartmentalizing within relationships. So for me now, as we go back to the original topic that we were talking about the boundaries that I've created around health, for example, when I make a boundary now, it'll be based on in the moment. So if I wake up and I'm at a level 10 of pain and I planned on exercising today, I'm going to say, I'm not going to do that today, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to try tomorrow. Doesn't mean that I'm going to try. Like, me saying no today, me creating a boundary today, it's not a locked door. It might be a shut door, but it's not a locked door.
Yeah.
So my daughter, one of my favorite series on the planet is Harry Potter. And I could go down a rabbit hole of why, because there's just moments that are just life moments in there, but I'll leave it at that. But it's been like a dream for me to have one of my teenagers love it as much as I do, so that I have somebody to talk to about it. Right. And up until this point, none of them have been real interested in watching it. And I've just been over here all kinds of sad and compartmentalizing, be like, well, I can't talk to them about it. Who can I talk to about it? Well, suddenly my oldest daughter, she's 16, she gets this whim to watch it. And this probably about a month ago. And she watched the entire 8-movie series back to back, like 3 times. She loved it so much.
Oh, wow.
So here I was in our relationship being like, we can't talk about that anymore. But if I had shut that door and locked it and been like, we're never going to be able to talk about this now she loves it, but we wouldn't be able to talk about it because I've locked that door. Now that's a very kind of silly, simple example, but it's what we do sometimes in very serious ways. We lock that door. And I think throughout this entire series, my biggest takeaway, my biggest lesson for everybody is to be the unlocked door when you create boundaries. Be the the net, and don't, because it doesn't just harm have the potential. Let me check myself there. It doesn't always have the potential to harm a relationship, but it could harm you and your ability to move forward and grow as a human being. We are in this time now where we get these staunch, I'm right, you're wrong opinions and boundaries and even with the horror that has happened over the last few weeks in this world. I have seen business people that I respect, coming out and being like, if you don't take a side, if you don't take a stance, I will not follow you anymore. We can't be friends anymore. We can't nothing. And I'm over here like, I refuse to take, I'm not doing it.
No.
I'm not doing it. And if that means that risks our friendship, because I choose to stand for love, to focus, that my focus is on love, not on choosing a side.
Yeah. That's the love. That's the love for, that's the love we have for people. You don't have to pick what side. You don't have to pick a right or wrong. Especially when the right or wrong for me, that boundary comes in because we want to be right about how we view a particular subject, but not that you can't, but like you said, you can't do that with human beings. You can't make a human being right or wrong when we all come from different environments and different walks of life. Like there's a certain part of being right or wrong in life when it comes to the laws and all that other stuff.
Right.
But to be right about another human being, it disconnects you from that humanness, right? And then now you're no longer able to connect, or your opinion becomes right. And as human beings, as we know, our brains are malleable. We're not fixed objects.
Yeah.
Like you're not a fixed object. That person can grow and learn. And you've seen it with your daughter. She grew and she learned, and now she's interested. Imagine if you'd have been like, forget her, forget y'all.
Right.
This is my world.
Yep.
And then, I watch Harry Potter, Mom. Now you don't want to. No, I don't want to talk to you about that. You should have watched it when I asked you to watch it. You should have did this when I did. But that's
how many of our parents said that kind of thing to us, though? You should have done it or liked it or whatever it is when I told you to, and we don't allow people to grow, and then we just have them be wrong. And then like what kind of boundary is that we're keeping ourselves, and we're not creating this space for other people to grow. Final thoughts, Farron, go.
Yeah, no, we're in 2024. We're coming back to more conversations about this, because for me, that the reconciliation and forgiveness in our families is so important. And just the stuff we hit in season 1, if you took those conversations to your own families and you had these kind of talks with your child, guess what that does? It restores relationships, because as a parent, the boundaries that we've carried from our past, we want to put that boundary on our children's lives so that they are protected. But guess what? That is not your life. That child will have their own boundaries in life, and they will tell you that they don't want that boundary. But because it happened to you, you want to add that extra boundary for them of protection. But then that creates a level of rebellion, and then that child's not going to listen to you, and now they're disappointed in you because you're not listening. They're already going to have their own boundaries. Not your boundaries. And that's something that is so important that I learned about myself and my own daughters, is that my concerns and worries and boundaries, I couldn't force them on them. They had their own worries and boundaries. So when I talked to them about what their boundaries were, guess what? Some of those boundaries disappeared because I encouraged them. I gave them tools and strength. So guess what? That boundary diminished, or became from a wall to a net. Right? But me putting my boundaries on there, which is more like a wall, they got my walls and their walls, and so nobody's free to be themselves. And
thinking about that on a bigger scale. So when we do that within the walls of our own home, and we share these stories and these beliefs and these boundaries, and we pass them down, and then those kids, it creates the world that we're in.
Yes.
It goes, we think that we're keeping all this inside of our homes, but it's not. It flows out, and that's playing in a little bit to the heart of your new show that you have coming up in 2024.
Yes.
Very
Here
exciting.
we go.
Very exciting. Both of Farron and I have new projects coming out in the new year. We've got Farron will be doing a new show.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've had this this view of, especially being a Black man. You know, a lot of conversations we hear in the world when you say a Black person, it derives from slavery and Jim Crow law and your ancestors. And yeah, like I definitely acknowledge my ancestors and what they went through, but I also look at the strength in that and how I'm somebody's prayer answer that they prayed, and I'm an answered prayer for my ancestors. And so now it's my turn, right? And so I don't have to think like them, right?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't born enslaved. I have no idea what it is to be enslaved.
Right.
I can imagine. I can sit here and imagine it, but it's not my life. So America, tell the truth, is how do we have a conversation about our ancestors and our past, and like what motivated your family members to come to the United States? A lot of us came here in different dynamics and different ways, and sometimes we don't even realize or we even know how we got here. Right. And sometimes we lose sight of how we got here, right? And then forget where we came from. So America, tell the truth, is going to be a conversation with people who are willing to talk and share. Hey, like, how did your family get to the United States? How did y'all get here? And do you know? And let them share their stories and their experiences of what they find out or what they found out about where their parents or great parents were coming to the United States for what reason. So it's going to be something like that, and just an opportunity for people to share. Ultimately, the goal is to create a relatedness. To create a relatedness that when you hear these stories and you hear my story, you're like, wow, that's relatable, because my parents came here fleeing from this country to be here for freedom and for a new life and an opportunity. So I believe once we have those kind of conversations, the labeling of the other, you're a other, will slowly disappear to like, man, you're a person. Like, I'm listening to you as a human being, not as a skin color or not based off your ancestors. So I think it's going to be really, I've been holding on to that for quite a couple of years now. And I believe in the way the world is right now. America, we need to tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you creating this show is going to create the potential for us, okay, it's going to take the part of every listener and every viewer of this show to be willing to hear, respect, and not even understand, but just hear and respect the other people's stories without getting into, but mine is worse.
Right.
But let me tell you about how bad it was for me.
Yeah. And I want you to come and tell that too. So if that shows up for you, you're more than welcome to come and tell the truth, your truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you.
I love it. It's going to be good. And I'll be doing, I'll be tackling a little bit of a smaller, it's gonna be a smaller.
Don't you dare diminish that.
Yeah, one of the things that we do, you know, as we are looking at different cultures and different areas of the world, is we like to make stereotypes of people, about people. And one of those stereotypes that I have had to live with for the 13 years that I lived down, or even more than that now. So let me see, 18 years I I lived down south as a New Englander, I had to deal with. But New Englanders are assholes. New Englanders are rude, and all of these things. And try it as I may to be the amazing, wonderful person, human being that I am, I always had that stereotype. And so I will be hosting a show called New Englanders Are Not Assholes. And the point of this is to showcase people in New England who are doing amazing things. They are running nonprofits. They are helping you change your tire on the side of the road. They've got a little bit of fire and ice in their blood. They're going to tell you how it is. They're going to tell you were stupid for letting your tire get flat, but they're going to help you change it. Exactly. They're going to help you change it. And so I'm super excited about this show and really getting to do a lot locally here in Southeastern Connecticut, which is my hometown. It's where I grew up. I'm back home. I might as well do something here. And so I'm really excited about that. That'll be starting in the new year as well. And then, of course, we will be back on the big screen for season 2
in 2D.
Beyond 2D.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Here we are.
Exciting. All right. So thank you so much, Farron, for being a part of season 1 with me here. This has been, and I said this, anybody that didn't see Project Joy Live yesterday, I had a good 5 minutes where I was gushing on my co-host here because it brought me so much joy to think about everything that we've been able to discuss this year on the show. And I just want to say how thankful I am for you. It is busted my wildest expectations.
Thank you. Same here.
I love it. And I want to thank all of you guys for participating in these really heavy, hard rabbit hole conversations with us. Everybody that's been in the audience, I just appreciate you so much for being here and for trusting that we're going to keep this a safe space for you always. Your opinion is always welcome. Your experience is always welcome. And we want to see more of that in 2024. So definitely tell your friends to come watch. If you have topic coming up and you know that someone might need help with that topic, you could be like, listen, my friends create a safe space for that. And you can come talk about it there. So come do it with us. I love you guys so much. We will see you for more of 2D.
And if you have topics that you want to bring to the table, we are always open to receive topics to discuss as well. It's not just a one-way conversation. So your interest is our subject. How's that?
Yes, I love it. So we are going to leave on this note. Today is the 1-year anniversary of the passing of our dear friend and Breakthrough alumni, Dorothy Auger. We're going to leave listening to her for Love Poem. This is the vibe that I would like you to be in as we go out in 2023 and come in 2024. And we will see you guys next year. Bye, everybody.
I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart. I shall stand for love, for the world is wounded, not just my little piece of land, where I am mostly safe, where I am mostly well, but our world, everywhere, every day. I shall stand for love, because we need more light, not more death, not more power, not more bombs. I shall stand for love, so that our children are safe, so that our friends are sheltered, so that our borders are open. I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart.